The sterile corridors of the Hegemony Data Archive stretched endlessly in every direction, their silver walls reflecting the cold blue light that never dimmed. Dr. Kim Soo-jin walked these halls every day for the past 15 years, her footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. She wore the gray uniform of a Level 7 archivist, the same dull color that marked all humans in their designated roles across the galaxy. Soo-jin stopped at Terminal 447B, her assigned workstation for another day of cataloging alien achievements. The Hegemony had been generous to her species, she reminded herself. Without their guidance, humans would still be struggling with primitive tools on their birth worlds. The thought felt strange in her mind, like a coat that didn't quite fit, but she pushed the feeling away. Such thoughts were dangerous. The morning passed in routine silence. Patent after patent crossed her screen: energy conversion systems, quantum processors, stellar navigation arrays. All brilliant innovations from the various species of the Hegemony. Yet sometimes, Soo-jin found herself staring at the technical diagrams with an odd sense of recognition, as if she had seen them before in dreams she couldn't quite remember. At exactly 14:30 the error occurred. A corrupted data fragment slipped through the censorship protocols, bypassing the filters that normally kept dangerous information from human eyes. The screen flickered, and suddenly Soo-jin was looking at something impossible. It was a world of impossible beauty. Blue oceans stretched to the horizon under white clouds. Green forests covered rolling hills. Cities of glass and steel reached toward a yellow sun. The data label read simply, Earth Restricted Classification Level 9. The moment she saw it, agony exploded through Soo-jin's skull. Her hands flew to her head as suppressed memories fought against the barriers in her mind. Images flashed behind her eyes like lightning, faces she knew but shouldn't know, places that felt like home but couldn't exist. She saw a woman with kind eyes and graying hair, calling her name in a language that sounded like music. Soo-jin, come help Mama in the garden. The voice was warm, filled with love, nothing like the cold efficiency of Hegemony speech patterns. Another flash, a man in a white coat standing beside her in a laboratory filled with humming machines. The quantum memory array is working perfectly, he said with pride. This will change everything for humanity. His face was older, lined with wisdom, and he wore a badge that read, Seoul Institute of Technology. The pain intensified. She saw ships falling from the sky like burning stars. Explosions lighting up city streets. People running, screaming as silver vessels descended from the heavens. A choice being made by desperate leaders, surrender or extinction. No, Soo-jin whispered, her voice barely audible in the empty archive. This isn't real. Humans were primitive. We were saved by the Hegemony. We were saved. But even as she spoke the words, they felt like lies. The memories were too vivid, too real. The woman in the garden, that was her mother. The scientist in the laboratory, her colleague Dr. Park, who had worked beside her for years developing breakthrough technologies that supposedly didn't exist. Soo-jin quickly closed the corrupted file, her hands shaking. She sat in silence for long minutes, trying to make sense of what she had seen. The official history said humans had been a failing species, barely capable of space flight, when the Hegemony found them. But the memories in her head told a different story entirely. That evening, as Soo-jin walked through the residential district where humans were housed, she noticed something she had never seen before. A maintenance worker was waiting by the transport station, his eyes scanning the crowd with obvious purpose. When he saw her, he approached with careful steps. You had the dreams too, didn't you? Park Min-ho asked in a low voice. His maintenance uniform was stained with engine oil, but his eyes held an intelligence that seemed too sharp for his assigned role. Soo-jin looked around nervously. I don't know what you're talking about. The woman in the garden. The laboratory with the quantum arrays. The ships falling from the sky. Min-ho's words hit her like physical blows. You remember Dr. Park, don't you? Your research partner at the Seoul Institute. How could you possibly know that? Soo-jin's voice was barely a whisper. Because I'm having the same memories. Because something is breaking down in our heads and we're starting to remember who we really were. Min-ho glanced around to make sure they weren't being watched. Come with me. There are others. They walked in silence through the winding streets of the human quarter, past the identical housing blocks where their people lived in quiet compliance. Min-ho led her to an abandoned storage facility on the district's edge. Inside, 3 other humans waited in the darkness. Lee Hannah, who worked in the waste processing center but whose eyes held the keen intelligence of an engineer. Choi Dae-hyun, a cargo loader whose bearing suggested military training that officially never existed. Kim Yi-jin, a medical assistant whose hands moved with the confidence of a trained surgeon. It's spreading, Hannah said without preamble. Whatever they did to our minds, it's failing. Humans across dozens of worlds are starting to remember fragments. Remember what exactly? Sujin asked, though part of her already knew the answer. That we weren't primitive. That we didn't need saving. Daehyun's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to command. That everything they've built, all their great technology, all their achievements, it's ours. They stole it from us after they conquered us. Sujin felt the world shifting around her, reality reshaping itself into something far more terrible and wonderful than she had imagined. The memories were real. The dreams were true. And if that was the case, then humanity had once been something magnificent. What do we do now? She asked. Now, Minho said, we help our people remember who they really are. 3 weeks after the first memory breakthrough, Sujin noticed the changes everywhere. In the archive halls, human workers would suddenly stop mid-task, their eyes distant and confused. In the residential blocks, people gathered in small groups, whispering about dreams that felt too real to be fantasy. The hegemony supervisors grew nervous, increasing patrols and medical checkups, but they couldn't stop what was happening inside human minds. The group had grown. What started as 5 frightened people in an abandoned storage facility had become 20, then 50. They met in secret locations across the city, empty maintenance tunnels, forgotten storage rooms, the spaces between worlds that the aliens never bothered to monitor. Lee Hannah was the first to make the breakthrough that changed everything. During her night shift cleaning the waste processing center, she found herself staring at a massive filtration system with growing recognition. Her hands moved without conscious thought, adjusting settings and recalibrating systems with the expertise of someone who had designed similar machines. I built this, she whispered to herself, her voice echoing in the empty facility. Not exactly this one, but the design. The core principles. I remember the equations, the stress calculations, everything. When she shared this revelation with the group, others began making similar connections. Choi Daehyun recognized tactical formations in the way hegemony ships moved through space. Kim Yejin saw human medical techniques being used in alien hospitals. The evidence was everywhere once they knew how to look. But the most shocking discovery came from an unexpected source. During a routine archive search, Sujin uncovered references to something called the Soul Protocols, classified documents that supposedly detailed early hegemony contact procedures. The name Soul triggered such intense memories that she nearly collapsed at her workstation. That evening, as the group met in their latest hideout, Sujin shared what she had learned. Seoul wasn't just a city on Earth. It was a major research center. The Seoul Institute of Technology was where we developed quantum computing, faster-than-light communication, advanced AI systems. Minho nodded grimly. I've been remembering more too. The war lasted 3 years. We were winning at first. Our technology was superior. But there were so many of them, species from across the galaxy working together. They didn't defeat us through strength, Daehyun added, his military memories becoming clearer each day. They used our own compassion against us. Threatened to destroy human colonies unless we surrendered. We chose submission over genocide. It was Yejin who first mentioned the underground. During her work in the medical center, she had noticed subtle signs, humans who seemed too alert, too aware. Patterns in their behavior that suggested hidden knowledge. There's something else, she said quietly. Some of us never forgot. Not completely. The contact came 2 days later. Sujin was leaving her shift when a cleaning woman approached her. The woman was older, her hair gray, but her eyes held depths that spoke of hidden wisdom. You're remembering faster than most, the woman said without introduction. My name is Young So-young. I've been waiting for people like you to wake up. So-young led them to a place Sujin had walked past countless times but never really seen, a maintenance access tunnel that seemed to dead end into a wall. But the wall wasn't real. It was a holographic projection hiding an entrance to something remarkable. The hidden chamber stretched deep underground, carved from living rock and lined with technology that hummed with quiet power. Dozens of humans moved through the space with purpose, their faces alert and determined in ways that Sujin had never seen in the human quarters above. Welcome to the underground, So-young said. We are what remains of human resistance. An elderly man stepped forward, his bearing suggesting leadership despite his simple clothes. I am Dr. Nam Kite, he said, former director of the Busan Space Research Center. We have much to show you. What they showed them changed everything. Hidden data stores containing the complete history of human civilization. Technical specifications for technologies the hegemony claimed as their own inventions. records of human colonies that had been erased from official histories but never truly destroyed. The memory suppression technology, Dr. Nam explained, was originally called the Therapeutic Memory Revision System. We developed it to help trauma victims. They turned it into a weapon against us. The truth was staggering. Every major hegemony innovation of the past century had human origins. The faster-than-light drives that powered their empire were based on the Seoul Institute's quantum fold theories. The artificial intelligence systems that ran their cities used algorithms developed by human programmers. Even their medical advances came from stolen human research. They didn't just conquer us, So Young said bitterly. They erased us and then used our own genius to build their civilization. We became slaves to our own inventions. But the underground had done more than just preserve knowledge. For decades, they had been preparing for this moment when the memory suppression would begin to fail. They had hidden cache sites across the galaxy, preserved human culture in forms the aliens couldn't detect, and maintained contact with free human populations in the Outer Rim. The awakening is accelerating, Dr. Nam told them. Our scientists estimate that within 6 months, nearly 30% of enslaved humans will have recovered significant memories. The hegemony knows this. They're preparing countermeasures. As Sujin processed this information, she felt a transformation taking place within herself. The scared archivist was falling away, replaced by someone stronger, smarter, more determined. She was remembering not just her past but her potential. What do we do? She asked. Now, Dr. Nam replied, we prepare for war. Not the kind they expect but the kind only humans can fight. We're going to remind our people who they really are, and then we're going to take back everything they stole from us. Around the chamber, awakened humans nodded in agreement. The galaxy had tried to erase them but humanity was remembering. And with memory came power. The revolution began quietly in the data archives of Nexus Prime. Sujin sat at her terminal, but instead of cataloging alien patents, she was coordinating the largest resistance movement in galactic history. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced speed, sending coded messages hidden within routine archive reports. Status report from Kepler-7, she whispered to Minho, who pretended to repair a ventilation unit nearby. Young Min-soo has awakened 300 agricultural workers. They remember how to build weapons. Minho nodded grimly. The network is spreading faster than we hoped. Yoon Tae-ho contacted us from the shipping yards on Altair 3. He's been teaching other humans to fly again. They remember being pilots. Across the galaxy, the awakening was becoming unstoppable. On mining worlds, human workers remembered being engineers and began sabotaging equipment. On research stations, human assistants recalled being scientists and started stealing back their own inventions. On military bases, human maintenance crews remembered being soldiers and began planning attacks. Kim Yi-jin had become a crucial part of the operation. Her work in the medical center gave her access to the hegemony's health monitoring systems. They're panicking, she reported during a secret meeting. Medical facilities are reporting massive increases in cognitive abnormalities among humans. They don't understand that we're not becoming sick, we're becoming ourselves again. The hegemony's response was swift and brutal. Memory wipe facilities, which had operated on routine schedules, now ran constantly. Humans who showed signs of recovered memories were dragged away in the night. Special security teams swept through human quarters, looking for any sign of organized resistance. But their efforts only made things worse. For every human they silenced, 10 more began to remember. The memory suppression technology, designed for occasional use, began failing under constant operation. The human brain proved more resilient than alien science had calculated. Young Min-soo became the first to successfully sabotage a major hegemony installation. Working in the agricultural domes of Colony 15, he had gradually awakened dozens of human workers. Together, they remembered not just farming techniques, but the weapons technology that had once made humanity feared across the galaxy. We built a simple electromagnetic pulse device, Min-soo reported through encrypted channels. When we activated it, the entire colony's memory suppression grid went down. 3,000 humans remembered who they were in a single day. The success inspired resistance cells on other worlds. Yoon Tae-ho, working in the shipping yards of Altair 3, had awakened former pilots and engineers. They began modifying cargo ships, turning them into vehicles of rebellion. These aren't just transport vessels, Tae-ho explained during a coded transmission. I remember now, I helped design these ships. They're based on human fighter craft. We can turn them back into weapons. Sujin found herself becoming the central coordinator for the growing network. Her position in the archives gave her access to galactic communication systems, allowing her to contact resistance cells across dozens of worlds. She developed awakening protocols, carefully crafted data packages that could trigger memory recovery in other humans. The protocols were works of art disguised as routine information. Hidden within shipping manifests, medical reports, and maintenance schedules were fragments of human history, pieces of music, mathematical equations that resonated with suppressed memories. When other humans encountered these hidden messages, their own awakening process accelerated. The hegemony tried to counter each new resistance tactic, but they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Human creativity, suppressed but never destroyed, found solutions to every obstacle. When the aliens increased security around communication networks, humans developed new codes. When they restricted access to technology, humans built new devices from basic materials. Dr. Nam Kite, coordinating from the underground facility, marveled at the reports flowing in from across the galaxy. "They're adapting faster than we ever hoped," he told So Young. "Each resistance cell is developing unique solutions to local problems. This is what made humanity dangerous, our ability to innovate under pressure." The breakthrough came when Sujin discovered the central weakness in the hegemony's power structure. While researching archive communication logs, she found evidence that the aliens had become completely dependent on stolen human technology. Their own innovation had stagnated centuries ago. "They can't adapt," she realized with growing excitement. "They've been using our inventions for so long, they've forgotten how to create new solutions. Every system they have is based on human design." This discovery changed the nature of the resistance. Instead of fighting the hegemony's technology, awakened humans began turning it against them. They knew the systems better than their captors because they had originally built them. Communication networks designed to suppress human messages became tools for spreading awakening protocols. Security systems meant to monitor human behavior were reprogrammed to hide resistance activities. Even the memory suppression facilities themselves were hacked and turned into memory recovery centers. The hegemony leadership gathered in emergency session on their capital world. General Vextar, military commander of the coalition, stood before the assembled alien council with news that shook them to their core. "The situation is beyond containment," he reported. "Human resistance cells are operating on over 200 worlds. Our technology is being turned against us at every level. They're not just remembering their past, they're innovating new solutions faster than we can respond." High Chancellor Mordun, leader of the hegemony, listened with growing dread. "How is this possible? Our memory suppression was perfect. It should have been permanent." "We underestimated their fundamental nature," Vextar replied. "Humans don't just remember information, they adapt it, improve it, combine it in ways we never anticipated. Their creativity is not just recovered knowledge, it's active problem-solving ability." The council fell silent as the implications sank in. They had built their empire on stolen human genius, but they had never understood the source of that genius, the endless human capacity for growth and change. "What do you recommend?" Mordun asked quietly. Vextar's response would change everything. "We implement final protocol. If we cannot control them, we must destroy them completely." The emergency alert screamed through every hegemony facility across the galaxy. Sujin stared at her terminal in horror as the official announcement scrolled past her eyes. "Final quieting protocol authorized. All human populations to undergo permanent neural restructuring within 72 hours. Around the archive, alien supervisors moved with grim efficiency. They avoided eye contact with their human workers, but their body language spoke of finality. This wasn't another memory wipe. This was something far worse. Minho appeared at her workstation, his maintenance uniform hiding the communication device that connected them to resistance cells across dozens of worlds. "The reports are coming in," he whispered urgently. "Massive ships are moving toward every human population center. The underground estimates they have enough power to destroy human consciousness permanently." Sujin felt cold terror grip her heart. After everything they had accomplished, after all the memories they had recovered, it would end like this. The aliens would turn them into empty shells, unable to think or dream or remember. "Dr. Nam is calling an emergency meeting," Minho continued. "All cell leaders need to gather immediately." They made their way through the city streets, past hegemony security forces that seemed unusually tense. In the distance, massive shadow fell across the sky as alien warships took position in orbit. The final quieting platforms were arriving. The underground facility buzzed with desperate activity. Resistance leaders from across the galaxy participated through hidden communication channels, their faces grim on the flickering screens. Dr. Nam stood at the center, his aged features drawn with exhaustion and defeat. The platforms carry enough neural suppression power to lobotomize entire continents, he reported. Our sabotage efforts have delayed them but not stopped them. We have perhaps 18 hours before the process begins. What about evacuation? Asked Young Min-soo from his agricultural colony. Can we get our people off-world? There are too many, replied Kim Yi-jin from her medical station. Millions of awakened humans across hundreds of worlds. Even if we had the ships, which we don't, there's nowhere to run. The meeting fell into silence. They had fought so hard, remembered so much, only to face extinction at the moment of victory. Soo-jin stared at the tactical displays showing hegemony forces positioned around every human settlement. It seemed hopeless. Then the impossible happened. The communication system crackled with an incoming message on frequencies that shouldn't exist. The signal was strong, clear, and unmistakably human. When the transmission cleared, a face appeared that none of them recognized, yet somehow familiar. This is Commander Ryu Jae-sung of the Human Defense Fleet, the man said with quiet authority. We've been monitoring your awakening. We're coming home. The resistance leaders stared in shocked silence. Dr. Nam was the first to find his voice. Who are you? Where are you transmitting from? The Outer Rim territories, Jae-sung replied. The worlds your captors think are empty wasteland. We never forgot, Dr. Nam. We've been waiting for our people to remember who they were. The truth that emerged over the next hour was staggering. During the final days of the human hegemony war, thousands of human ships had escaped to the galaxy's edge. Instead of surrendering, these survivors had built hidden colonies in regions too harsh and remote for alien interest. We've spent 40 years rebuilding, explained Dr. Song Hae-jin, who appeared on another channel. New technologies, new weapons, new ships. We've been preparing for this day. As if summoned by her words, space around the hegemony platforms began to ripple. Ships emerged from hyperspace, sleek vessels that bore no resemblance to anything in the current galactic fleet. They moved with purpose and grace, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor and weapons systems. Impossible, whispered General Vextar from his command ship as hundreds of human vessels surrounded his forces. Where did they come from? The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. It wasn't just ships fighting ships, it was minds at war. As the hidden human fleets engaged hegemony forces, awakened humans across the galaxy launched coordinated cyber attacks on every alien system. Soo-jin found herself at the center of the electronic warfare. Her recovered memories as Dr. Kim Soo-jin of the Seoul Institute came flooding back with perfect clarity. She had been the lead developer of quantum memory storage systems, the very technology the hegemony had corrupted to suppress human memories. I know their systems, she announced to the underground command center. Not just how they work, I know how they think. I designed the core architecture myself. Her fingers flew across multiple keyboards as she accessed alien networks with the authority of their original creator. Security protocols that had seemed impenetrable crumbled before her knowledge. She wasn't breaking into their systems, she was coming home to her own work. Across the galaxy, other awakened humans made similar discoveries. The weapons engineer Young Min-soo recognized the power systems of hegemony warships because he had designed their predecessors. The pilot Yoon Tae-ho flew circles around alien fighters because their navigation systems were based on his own innovations. They built their entire civilization on stolen human technology, Soo-jin realized as she systematically shut down one alien network after another. But they never understood the underlying principles. They just copied the surface design. The tide of battle turned with shocking speed. Hegemony forces found their own weapons turning against them, their communication systems broadcasting human resistance messages, their navigation computers plotting courses toward defeat. On the bridge of his flagship, General Vextar watched his empire crumble. How are they doing this? He demanded of his technical officers. The humans aren't just fighting us, came the terrified reply. They're demonstrating that everything we are belongs to them. We are the primitives. We have always been the primitives. The final quieting platforms, those symbols of alien dominance, became humanity's greatest victory. Soo-jin's intimate knowledge of their systems allowed her to reverse their function completely. Instead of destroying human consciousness, they began broadcasting awakening signals across the galaxy. In a single day, millions of humans remembered who they were. The galaxy watched in awe as humanity revealed the true scope of their genius, their resilience, and their unbreakable spirit. The silence that followed the battle was deeper than space itself. Across the galaxy, hegemony fleets drifted powerless in the void, their crews staring in disbelief at screens that displayed impossible truths. Every system they had trusted, every technology they had claimed as their own, had turned against them in the hands of their creators. On Nexus Prime, Sujin stood in what had once been the Hegemony Data Archive, now transformed into humanity's first restoration center. The sterile walls had been covered with recovered human art, paintings from Earth, sculptures from the Mars colonies, poems written in languages that had supposedly been lost forever. "Look at this," Minho called from across the room, holding up a data crystal. "We found it in the children's quarters. It's disguised as a simple lullaby, but hidden in the rhythm patterns is the complete genetic code for Earth wheat." Around them, awakened humans worked with quiet intensity, uncovering treasures that had been hidden in plain sight for decades. The hegemony had tried to erase human culture, but they had failed to understand its true nature. Human knowledge lived not just in books and computers, but in songs mothers sang to their children, in games played during work breaks, in the unconscious patterns people traced with their fingers during long, boring tasks. "The resistance was never just about fighting back," explained Dr. Nam as he studied recovered files. "Our people preserved everything even when they didn't remember why. A work chant from the mining colonies contains the blueprints for faster-than-light engines. A children's game preserves advanced mathematical theorems. The aliens thought they had erased us, but we were hiding in our own culture." 3 months after the war's end, the transformation was remarkable. Former slaves had become teachers, sharing knowledge that flowed back like a river returning to its source. Young Min-Soo stood in laboratories where he once cleaned floors, now leading teams of engineers in developing new agricultural technologies. Kim Yijin worked in medical centers not as an assistant, but as the chief researcher she had always been. But perhaps the most surprising change was in humanity's treatment of their former captors. The galaxy had expected revenge, punishment, the kind of brutal justice that had defined interstellar politics for centuries. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented. Choi Dae-hyun, his memories as a decorated admiral fully restored, led the first diplomatic mission to the hegemony capital. The alien leaders who greeted him expected to negotiate the terms of their surrender, possibly their execution. What they received instead was an offer of partnership. "We know what it's like to lose everything," Dae-hyun told the assembled alien council. "We know the fear of extinction, the desperation that drives species to do terrible things. We're not here to destroy you. We're here to build something better together." The offer seemed impossible to the alien leaders. General Vextar, the military commander who had overseen human suppression, stood before beings he had enslaved and tortured, yet they spoke of cooperation rather than vengeance. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "After everything we did to you, why would you offer us mercy?" Sujin, now recognized as Dr. Kim Sujin, humanity's foremost expert on quantum consciousness technology, answered with quiet confidence. "Because that's what makes us human. We grow, we learn, we forgive. You tried to take that away from us, but you only made it stronger." The next year brought changes that rippled across the galaxy. Human technologies, no longer hoarded by the hegemony but shared freely, sparked innovations on hundreds of worlds. Medical advances that could cure diseases that had plagued species for millennia. Energy systems that could power civilizations without environmental damage. Transportation methods that made the galaxy smaller and more connected than ever before. But the humans didn't simply give away their innovations. They taught other species how to understand them, how to improve them, how to create new solutions for their own unique challenges. Former enemies became students, then colleagues, then friends. Yoon Tae-ho established the first integrated flight academy, where humans worked alongside aliens to develop new spacecraft designs. Dr. Song Hygiene opened research centers where species that had never trusted each other collaborated on projects that benefited everyone. The transformation culminated in the establishment of the Galactic Restoration Council, headquartered on a new space station built through the combined efforts of dozens of species. The station itself was a work of art, its design incorporating architectural elements from every participating civilization. On the day of the Council's first session, representatives from over 100 worlds gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. The chamber buzzed with excitement and nervous energy as former enemies took their seats side by side, preparing to write a new chapter in galactic history. Sujin walked to the central podium, her steps echoing in the vast space. She wore simple clothes, not the uniform of a conqueror or the robes of a ruler, but the practical garments of a scientist and teacher. Around her, beings of countless species watched with attention that bordered on reverence. 40 years ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, you tried to erase us because you feared what we could become. You saw our creativity, our adaptability, our refusal to accept limits, and you decided that such things were dangerous to the established order. She paused, looking out at faces that represented every corner of the known galaxy. You were right to fear us. But not for the reasons you thought. The chamber fell completely silent. You feared we would conquer you, dominate you, become the new masters of the galaxy. But our true danger was never in our weapons or our technologies. Our danger was in our dreams, dreams of a better universe where different species work together, where knowledge is shared rather than hoarded, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. Sujin smiled, and her expression carried the warmth of genuine hope. They tried to erase us because they feared what we could become. Now we'll show them what we choose to become. The response was thunderous. Beings who had been enemies for generations rose to their feet in applause, their voices joining in approval that echoed through the station and across the galaxy. In that moment, the age of the hegemony truly ended, and the age of cooperation began. Later, as the session concluded and representatives mingled in the corridors, Minho found Sujin looking out through a great window at the stars beyond. Do you think it will last? He asked. Sujin considered the question, watching ships from dozens of worlds docking at the station in peaceful cooperation. The old way was built on fear and control. This new way is built on hope and choice. Which do you think is stronger? In the distance, a human child played with alien companions, their laughter mixing in the universal language of joy. The answer was written in their play, in the shared work happening throughout the station, in the dreams that were no longer forbidden. Humanity had not just survived, they had shown the galaxy what they had always known but temporarily forgotten. The human spirit, once awakened, burns brighter than any star. And when it shines, it illuminates possibilities that were never there before, creating futures that no one could have imagined alone. The story of human erasure had ended. The story of galactic renaissance had begun.